Now it's recording.
Okay, beautiful. All right, let me pull up the questions here, and we'll get right into it. But yeah, let me see. Where is this thing? Okay. All right. So, brief introduction for the web agency. This is Shani. Previously, we worked together. He was at DevZero, is at DevZero, also many other companies he advises on, and was the decision maker in selecting Salient and also the point of contact. So, with that said, I'll just kind of tee this up. There's a bunch of questions that I'm not going to necessarily ask all of them if they don't apply to you, or if you have nothing interesting to say, we'll just skip it and move to the next one. The first bucket is really around the search and the decision process when you were first figuring out, which agency to choose. So I think I'll start with actually the first one, which is actually just kind of broad, which is why, when you're thinking about marketing and communications and you're probably looking at advertising and you're looking at content marketing, why PR? What is the sort of made you the decision that you knew you needed to hire a PR agency?
So I think PR is another part of marketing and another part of communication. And so, one, we had a major milestone, which was in that case a new product that we're introducing, and there was the biggest conference of the year, and so that was kind of the driver to hire a PR agency. I think there's in my experience, PR doesn't necessarily generate enormous traffic at that point, but one, it gives you an opportunity to share that story and you can build a campaign around that. And two, it pays dividends, at least SEO. I don't know what's the impact on AEO nowadays, but definitely in terms of SEO. And so that was kind of the reason we decided to do that. Why do that with an agency? I think we got so many things going on at any given day, and I like I could probably have reached out to all those reporters and analysts, but um, I have a full day and a job, and so I thought it would be best to hire someone to actually do that.
Great. Okay. So when you're going through that search and walk me through that, like how you actually chose a PR agency, what channels did you rely on? Online research, referrals, ads, something else?
Yeah. So our domain is very specific, developer tooling, and so I was looking for, someone that focuses specifically in developer tooling, worked with companies similar to ours. Um, I think that the analysts that we're targeting, the outlets that we're targeting are very specific to our industry. And that's so I think, I was literally Googling, it was a combination of, me Googling, I think it was DevTool PR or DevTool, something. Um, and on top of that, I was also looking at specific channels like Hacker News, and again, channels that are more related to, um, our industry. I was looking through, I don't know, things like Heavybit. I was looking through a bunch of startup forums on Slack, for example. I'm involved in a couple of accelerators, and so I was looking at recommendations there. And yeah, and I was also looking at other companies in our industry that I think are a little bit further advanced. And I was trying to see when they issued press release, who they partnered with. And so that was kind of, the outlets that I was exploring.
Yeah. Okay. Um, when you were doing that search, did you have any, like, were you taking notes throughout that process? Did you have like spreadsheet where you were creating matrices for scores for this agency strong here, weak here, or was it a bit more informal? How did you keep yourself organized through that decision-making process?
It was a little bit less formal. I think I ended up with I think I had two or three agencies in mind. One was an agency that I worked with previously, and two other ones were, were agencies that I came across throughout the process. I think in our domain there isn't, tons of agencies, especially not ones that work with companies at our stage. And so I think we also had an issue of timing because, we're literally a month ahead of the conference. And so I was also looking for someone that can work around those timelines. And so, yeah, I mean,
Okay,
so it
that
wasn't
actually
formal.
Yeah, that actually leads me to my next thing, which is around like concerns and doubts when you were choosing an agency. So I assume timing probably was a factor. All of these agencies are, let's assume, pretty qualified in terms of working with developer tools and developer agencies, and they know the industry. What other doubts or concerns did you have when you were selecting an agency? Was there anything, if it was you were trying to figure out between A or B, what would make you hesitate on one or the other?
So first of all, again, there weren't a lot. I narrowed the list to, two agencies that I saw that have experience, with developer tooling, and the third one that I worked with in the past. The one that I worked with in the past, uh, he wasn't very responsive, and um, he kind of gave me a very generic proposal, and what I was looking for was specific. So I was looking for, someone that I was looking for those niche outlets that, the news stock, Hacker News, so, and I was looking for relationship with specific analysts that cover our industry, Silicon Angle and stuff. And so I think ultimately it came down to, who convinced me that they actually know the right channels. And so again, some of them talked about like, hey, TechCrunch and I don't know, New York Times or whatever, whatever. And others talked about, the new stock and um, I'm blanking on the name of the guy in the UK. But like, again, I think the more specific that it got, I mean, that's kind of what I was looking for. I was looking for those specifics.
Okay. If you were to name just one quality that you were looking for above all others in a PR agency, what would it be?
Experience in our domain.
Okay. Um, all right. I think that pretty much covers it for the like selection process. And
Yeah.
then if I move on to some of the other things here. So previously, remind me, were you coming? You said you had worked with somebody before, but there was no previous. Was there a previous PR agency, and you were switching into when you
No, we
came over
didn't
to
have a
Scaling PR?
previous
There was
PR.
nobody, right?
No, no, there was, well, the DevZero had a PR agency that was covering the funding, which was back in 2022.
Mhm.
Um, I think they were more like generalists, and I don't remember why we didn't really work with them. I don't think that they were a good fit,
Yeah.
what we're doing. I think it's very when you're announcing funding and you want to announce that to the world versus when you're announcing a product and you
Yeah.
want to go to a specific niche. I think these are two different things. And again, I had an agency that I worked with at a prior company.
Okay. So most of these questions around like if you were, had an agency and you were coming over to us and the sort of the whole process there. So I don't think it really applies. I'm going to skip these and move
Okay.
on into PR support ahead of the announcement questions. So you know, I think we've already covered the fact that you had this announcement. This was the main motivating factor that made you decide you need to hire this agency. We've gone over doubts and concerns at this point of already like overcoming them. You felt like industry experience, we had the domain expertise, we were talking about the publications and the analysts that you were looking for. Um, let's see. I'm trying to just skip over stuff and not waste your time here. The things you might have already answered. Yeah, let's talk about the PR, like in house. You mentioned, okay, so the question is essentially, have you ever tried to handle PR, media outreach in house? How would you describe the difference between doing it on your own and working with a professional PR team? Besides the fact that you burn probably a ton of hours on doing it yourself, is
Yeah.
there any other things that you would mention?
Um, I mean, if I had a larger team, would I do that in-house? There's a chance that I would have done that in-house. Not
Mhm.
that specific PR, but if I had a team of three, four, five people in marketing, I would consider doing that in-house because I think that there's a value to like, building the relationship, especially with analysts long term.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean that's as much as I can say.
It's resource constraints, right? I mean, that's like mainly it. You need to get up something running fast. You got a month out. You got to get it done. You're going to go with an agency. So, speaking of that, that's sort of like you realize that you needed PR support. At what point did you realize that you needed to get an agency? So you had this announcement. I think you reached out maybe it was like a month before, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how long you've been working with DevZero before that, or how long it was known that the product was coming around that time. But what point in that journey was it like, oh shit, we got to get PR? Was it like literally the week before we talked, or
No, I think
before that? But
yeah, I think it was about I don't know, maybe 3, 4 weeks before we met. Uh, and I think I was, at that point, one, I started doing research, and two, I think I might even have been in touch with a few agencies, and um, either they weren't responsive, I met with them and I figured out that it wasn't a good fit, and so on and so forth. So I think the process probably started, I don't know, 3 weeks before we met.
okay.
Uh,
So basically about 7 weeks before the actual announcement was when it was like, oh, we got to get a PR partner. Let's get on this.
yes. Yeah.
About 2 months. Okay. And then one question I have is internally, is there a focus that you feel like where your teams are looking at what your competitors are doing and how they're sort of using PR, leveraging PR, and are they raising that issue? Like, why aren't we over in this publication and we weren't mentioned here? I mean, do you hear that internally? Is there a focus on what competitors are doing when it comes to PR, or not really?
Very little. I mean, to the extent that, hey, these guys just announced that product, those guys just, told that story, but, and again, we'll share that internally, but it wasn't like, why aren't we doing that? So,
Hmm. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Um, and as far as if you could improve one aspect of PR support, what would it be and why?
Specifically around our engagement or generally?
Either or.
Um, I think, probably two things. One is, I think our engagement was like one off, and I'm sure that there's like other opportunities, for us to to work together, or maybe even for us to consider PR. And I don't think that, I think that being a little bit more proactive and, maybe even like inspiring us a little bit, wouldn't have been a bad idea. I also, there's a few conferences in our industry, and I think that, 3 months ahead of that conference, like sending
Hmm.
an email and saying, hey, I know that John and Jill are going to be at, KubeCon in Atlanta, and, would you like me to set up some time to meet with them, etc.
Hmm.
So that was one.
Proactivity, basically.
Yeah,
Getting ahead of it. It's making good suggestions.
yeah, and I think um, we we talked to a lot of analysts, and I think analysts are very, they're very self-motivated in terms of, we want you to sponsor our next coverage, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish would have gotten more like, news outlets, more like,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, those are kind of the two things that come to mind.
Yep. Okay. And then going back to this relationship when we were working together. So we kick off, and like we're starting to work for the very first time together. There's a moment when you say, "Yep, I genuinely feel good about the direction things are going." You're like, "Well, this was the right call working with them." At what moment was that? If you can think back to that, was it? I mean, it could be that we're integrated, we're a team, we're flying through Slack updates quickly, and you feel like we're already a partner from day one. The speed, the agility, whatever. Or it could be at the very end. It's like, great, now I'm starting to see uh, meetings are being set up with the analysts that we had sort of targeted, and we have good response there. I mean, what was there a moment after you made the decision, where after we're underway, where you're like, yeah, this is going well, and I feel good.
I think the moment that I was kind of like, okay, this is going great, is the moment where we started seeing meetings on the calendar.
Hmm.
And also kind of, just the ongoing communication and stuff. So that was great. Um, I, I don't know. I think like there were moments where, again, we had a very tight timeline of putting that story together. And so, kind of communication, timely communication and being available was important. And I think kind of the fact that we very quickly got the story together, and I previously worked with companies where like 2 months of like changing words here and there, and not being able to come to an agreement, and ultimately even like putting the PR, back to drafts and stuff. So again, I felt that there was some sort of partnership there, but I think like the point where I was like, okay, we've made the right decision was when we started, filling up the calendar with meetings.
Yep. Okay. If you could imagine the ideal, I got two questions and that's it. If you could imagine the ideal collaboration with any PR agency, what would that look like for you?
I think that would have been, probably a more long-term relationship where where it's not like one-off. It's more, hey, maybe we meet once a quarter or every 6 months, and we think if there's something down the pipe, or maybe, again, like being a little more inspiring us to maybe things that we're not thinking of. Hey, you guys should figure out a way to get in front of Gartner, and the working on a report, and and you guys should be the cool vendor of the year or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and again, I think along the way, yeah, I've been doing PR for a number of years, but I'm sure that there's always like new stuff that I can that PR is not something, unlike, I don't know, content or dimension, it's not something that you do necessarily on an ongoing basis. And so I think that there was an opportunity to, educate, inspire, and so yeah, that's probably the only thing that I would change. And I think it's a relatively low-hanging fruit. Um, and probably once a year, like do something together that's more like paid engagement, similar to what we did.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, last question. So, if you're evaluating the effectiveness of PR work, what matters most to you? And that could be how your CEO feels, the board members, the number of articles. You could look at impressions and all the sort of metrics that go around that. Could be gut feel. Is there anything that you're looking at if you're looking at the effectiveness of PR, lead gen, whatever,
Yeah.
bottom of funnel, top of funnel? What is the sort of metrics that when you're evaluating effectiveness, what is that for you?
I think it's a combination of multiple things. I'll tell you what it's not in my view. It's not how the board feels about that, or even the CEO. Because I mean, we can write beautiful PRs that don't get any exposure, and so um, I'm. I mean, I think the fact that the CEO um, feels good about that is probably a bonus point, but I don't think it's like the way that I measure PR. I measure that based on things like top line impact, based on the amount of traffic that we get, the amount of coverage that we get, where we're mentioned, both in terms of volume as well as in terms of which outlets. Yeah, I would say like all of those things probably.
Okay, beautiful. All right, we're done.
Okay.
That is super helpful. Thank you so much. Please tell me where you want the gift card. If it's the same place, I'll send it over right after we're done.